Welcome, grade 8 students. This is Mr. JB, and once again, we're up for another lesson this week. This is our second lesson, reading skill. The title of our lesson is Analyze Connections in a Text. So, as you turn your book or literary companion on page 210 and 211, you will be seeing our lesson there on your end. I hope that you had your materials ready, your literary companion, and your pen, and we shall start as soon as you are ready. Our learning objectives are as follows. 1. Explain a sample analogy. And 2. Show text connections by creating an analogy. I hope that you can help me with this because I have spent hours in relating these two historical events. Well, we're going to find some connections between Mr. Martin Luther King, who's actually the proponent and the one who advocated the non-violent civil protest to fight racial injustice in the United States, while we have Mahatma Gandhi on the right, who's the proponent of peaceful protest in India and who has influenced a lot of people to do the same thing. Now, looking at these two details and descriptions that we have on our end, what do you think are these two have in common? Well, in comparing two different things and two different historical events, we can definitely use some figures of speech. We can use simile or metaphor or even an analogy. But what is an analogy and how is it different from a metaphor? Skilled writers use a variety of techniques to make their text more interesting and appealing to the readers. We can definitely use an analogy and metaphor as examples. When you're using an analogy, you're comparing two completely different things to each other. When you're using a metaphor, you are writing a phrase or a word while actually referring to something else. Here are some examples of the purposes of an analogy. We could show a part to whole. We could have a product to a thing. We can definitely show relationship between characteristics. We can also show synonyms and antonyms and a function to thing. We can use these figurative language, such as an analogy, in comparing related historical events. Let's just have this excerpt or quote from Mr. Martin Luther King Jr. The man who shot Gandhi only shot him into the hearts of humanity. Looking at this quote, we can see that there are two things that are shown. Its literal meaning and the analogy that was used. The literal meaning or the fact was the shooting death of Gandhi. The analogy was the shot that killed Gandhi also had an impact on people around the world who will remember Gandhi with love and continue to learn from him. Always remember, when you make connections between informations you already know and information you are reading about for the first time, remember to consider both facts and figurative language. Analogies and other figures of speech can make important ideas memorable. Let's put this lesson into practice. Let's apply our learning and analyzing connections in text. Read this excerpt from Martin Luther King Jr.'s novel lecture from 1964, then answer the questions. Nonviolence is a powerful and just weapon, which cuts without wounding. It was used in a magnificent way by Mohandas K. Gandhi to challenge the might of the British Empire and free his people. He struggled only with the weapons of truth, soul force, non-injury, and courage. Question A. Think about the facts you know about Gandhi from reading the How Gandhi Changed the World. Describe two specific facts that supports the general statements that King makes about Gandhi. I want you to think about your answer and then write it on your book. This could be a possible answer. I know that Gandhi led the Salt March in India to peacefully protest a British tax that would hurt poor people. He also encouraged Indians to make their own cloth rather than rely on British imports. In these ways, He challenged the British Empire and paved the way for independence. Question B. Reread the underlined text in the excerpt. Explain the analogy that King uses to describe Gandhi and his work. Take your time to answer this question. This could be a possible answer. King uses weapons as an analogy to explain something about nonviolence. He calls nonviolence a powerful and just weapon, which may seem contradictory since weapons usually inflict violence. He means that nonviolence can be achieve big goals without harming anyone. Now, I want to challenge you with this one. Connect what you have read about Mohandas Gandhi and Nelson Mandela. This is different now because Nelson Mandela became the president of South Africa. Write a brief comparison of their work. Try to include an analogy or a figure of language. Note that Nelson Mandela fought for South Africa's independence as Mohandas Gandhi does as well to India. Have fun doing this activity. In summary of our reading skill, analyze connections in a text. We can make connections using comparison, such as an analogy. And an analogy helps us to show relationships between two concepts or texts. I hope that you learned something today. If you do, please do subscribe to the channel of New Vision International School. This has been Teacher JB, and I shall see you on the next video. Bye.